So Xbox Game Pass Ultimate has just gone through another major update, and this one feels different. Not just because of the price change, but because of what it says about the future of the service. And more importantly, the direction Xbox is heading under new leadership. Because whether people want to admit it or not, this entire situation is happening under Asha Sharma. And that makes this moment a lot more interesting than it might seem at first glance. Let's start with the actual change. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate has dropped in price from around $29.99 to about $22.99 per month. On paper, that sounds like a win. After that massive 50% price increase back in 2025, this feels like Microsoft correcting course and trying to make the service more accessible again. And to be fair, that's exactly what this is. But it's not the full story. Because alongside that price drop comes a major shift in what you're actually getting for your money. New Call of Duty games are no longer coming to Game Pass on day one. Instead, they're being delayed, sometimes up to a year before they hit the service. And that's huge. That's not a minor feature being tweaked. That's one of the core pillars of what made Game Pass feel like such an incredible deal in the first place. The idea that you could pay a monthly fee and instantly play some of the biggest games in the world on launch day was what set Game Pass apart from everything else. And now, that promise is starting to change. But here's where things get really interesting. Because this isn't just a random decision. This is directly tied to what Asha Sharma has been saying since she took over. In internal discussions, she's been very clear about one thing. Game Pass has become too expensive for players, and the current model isn't sustainable long term. And if you think about it, she's not wrong. Game development costs are skyrocketing, especially for massive franchises like Call of Duty. At the same time, Microsoft spent nearly $70 billion acquiring Activision Blizzard. So trying to offer those kinds of blockbuster titles day one, inside a subscription that costs less than a single new game, that's a tough model to maintain. So what we're seeing now is a rebalancing. Lower the price so more people can afford the service, but also reduce the immediate cost of feeding it with brand new AAA releases. And from a business perspective, that makes a lot of sense. But from a player perspective, that's where things get complicated. Because depending on how you used Game Pass, this change is either a smart adjustment or a major downgrade. If you're someone who plays a wide variety of games, explores the backlog, and just wants access to hundreds of titles for a lower monthly price, this might actually be a better deal than before. But if you were subscribed specifically for those big day one releases, especially something like Call of Duty, then this is a noticeable step back. Now let's talk about the leadership angle, because this is where the conversation gets a little unfair. When Asha Sharma was announced as replacing Phil Spencer, a lot of gamers immediately wrote her off. And let's be honest, most of that criticism wasn't based on anything she had actually done yet. It was reactionary. People were worried about change, worried about losing what Xbox had become under Phil Spencer, and they projected all of that onto her before she even had a chance to make a move. But now we're actually seeing her strategy play out, and it's a lot more nuanced than people expected. She didn't just come in and raise prices again. In fact, she's doing the opposite. She's lowering the cost, acknowledging that players are feeling the pressure, and trying to create what she called a better value equation. At the same time, she's making the hard decisions that come with that, and removing or delaying day one access to certain blockbuster titles. That's exactly the kind of tough call you have to make if you're trying to keep a service like this sustainable. And that's what makes this moment so interesting, because in a weird way, this is the first real test of her leadership. And instead of playing it safe, she's actively reshaping one of Xbox's biggest products. We're also seeing signs that she's willing to rethink everything, not just pricing. There's talk of more flexible tiers, different levels of access, and even experimenting with how Game Pass is structured altogether. So this isn't just a price update, this is the beginning of a bigger shift. Game Pass is moving away from being the you get everything immediately service and towards something that's more flexible, more sustainable, but also a little more limited in certain areas. And whether that's a good thing or not really depends on what you expect from it. Because at the end of the day, the original Game Pass model might have been a little too good to be true. It was incredible value, no question. But it also came with long-term questions about how it could possibly be maintained without either massive price increases or major changes like this. Now we're seeing those questions get answered in real time. And honestly, this might just be the beginning. If this strategy works, we could see even more adjustments, different tiers, more staggered releases, maybe even new ways to access games that we haven't seen before. But one thing is clear, Game Pass is evolving, and this version of Game Pass is very much being shaped by Asha Sharma, whether people like it or not. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you want more deep dives like this, check out my Patreon, where my latest exclusive takes a look at whether or not open world games still feel fresh. Let me know in the comments. Do you think this new direction for Game Pass is a smart move? Or is it losing what made it special? Until next time, game on.